Good evening and welcome to another edition of Film Nut. I am your host, Jeff Schubert. Glad you can join us. Well, here at the stream, we like things that are green, so I want to give a special shout out and an announcement that on March 23rd, 2010, the International Green Globe Awards will honor the top international and socially responsible films. I want to congratulate all the nominees and the winners, and for more information on this gala event, you can go to anaheim.edu. Tonight's show, we are going to be talking about marketing and theater distribution. My guest tonight is the Vice President of Exhibitor Relations for Summit Entertainment, and prior to Summit, he filled a similar job function at Miramax for 7 years. In hard economic times, it is more important than ever to maximize your marketing dollar, and here to talk about that and more is part of the bedroom crew himself, Ryan Provencher.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
So, real briefly then, for people who might not be familiar with the term exhibitor relations, what does that entail?
Well, the first thing I usually tell people is that I sleep with all the exhibitors. I actually don't do that, but
that's what we like to tell people.
Right. That's what, well, it gets people excited about it. Well, one of the things that my job is half of my foot is in marketing, half of my foot is in distribution. So what that means is literally when you walk into a movie theater, anything that you see in there, I have negotiated to get in there.
So a movie theater is,
right.
is a place where a movie gets exhibited.
Exactly.
So exhibitor relations is you're getting movies into
right.
theaters. So
and an exhibitor would be AMC or Regal or Cinemark. Those are the main exhibitors across the United States that have the most movie theaters. And what I do is I negotiate to get the one sheets up, the movie posters, the movie previews, known as trailers in the theaters. There are banners, there are standees and things like that, so you see those in the hallways. Some theaters have kiosks that show trailers on them in theaters. I work to negotiate to get those up. If there are things on popcorn bags or there are cups associated with movies, I negotiate to make all of that happen. So if you're learning about a movie in the theater, I've had something to do with it.
Something to do with that.
Right.
So Summit and Miramax, what are some of the films you've worked on or are working on currently with Summit? And then you can also include, but distinguish for the audience, which is which.
Which is which.
For Miramax.
Sure. Well, with Summit, we have, this is my plug now, November 20th, we have New Moon coming out this Friday, so the sequel to Twilight, so we have that. I've worked on a number of Summit films. I worked on Sex Drive, I worked on Sorority Row, Hurt Locker, a number of films for them. Sure. Next Day Air, Knowing, the Nicolas Cage film that came out at the beginning of the year. And then at Miramax, I worked on a bunch of different films, over 100 actually, when it was all said and done. But some of the big ones I worked on was No Country for Old Men, I worked on Satsi, I worked on Aviator, Gangs of New York, Chicago. To say that you worked on a film that won Best Picture, that's pretty cool. Kill Bill 1 and 2, I worked on both of those.
You and Martin Scorsese have a thing, right?
Yeah, Martin and I are good friends.
Good friends, right? You work on a lot of his films, right?
I don't know how Shutter Island's going, but I hear it's good, so there you go. So. And
so now Summit is the Twilight, is that taking Summit to a different level, or?
Absolutely. We've had great movies at Summit. We've had some absolutely terrific films that have made quite a bit of box office, and we're incredibly proud of all of them. But obviously, for a company of the size of Summit, you want to have something that puts you on the map across the world. And there's no question that Twilight has done that. There are 4 books, all of them bestsellers. Stephenie Meyer, the writer, was just on Oprah. I mean, this is the big franchise right now.
Now, were you given a bigger budget for 2 and 3 than the first one because the first one was a success?
Like all sequels, the budget's increased to a certain degree. So yeah, it has gone up. I think everything tries to stay in check because you want the movie, you want to spend as much as you can to make the movie that people want to see, while also being a profitable one. So yeah, are we spending more on each one? Of course we are. But and you see it on the screen. You definitely, for people that will see New Moon, you'll see the style of it is a little glossier. Not that Twilight's not a terrific film, but it's a little bit different with this one and the next one.
So you're talking about the actual filmmaking aspect. We'll see some of that money differential in the film itself.
Sure.
But I was also talking about for what you do, the marketing.
On the marketing side, absolutely. To some degree, you don't have to spend more money to market the movie, especially something like New Moon, because everybody already knows about it. But
and virally helps you out a lot.
Viral is huge, and there have been a number of movies recently that have done absolutely terrific viral campaigns. And we've done a great one. We've done some things that have never been done before, which is terrific. But yeah, it has to go up because you have to be seen everywhere, and that's in television, the internet, in theaters, all across the world, in bookstores. I mean.
Well, I'm going to get to a follow-up question in a minute, but we got an IM coming in I want to get to from HD Filmmaker. Who contacts who to exhibit a film? In parentheses, theater contact distributor or distributor contacts theaters? And if the distributor contacts exhibitors, what department at the exhibitor should be contacted?
Okay, well, it's all done through distribution. We let people know when the movie is coming out, and then we work with the exhibitors on that release date to get as many prints in theaters as possible.
So you let AMC know?
We let everybody know.
Everybody?
Yeah, everybody. And when I say everybody, you're talking AMC, Regal, Cinemark, the big chains, to the independent theaters, which there are thousands of those.
And did you try to create a bidding war, or?
No, it's us working with the exhibitor to get on as many screens as possible. It's us. We're not bidding against. We might be releasing at the same time as another movie, so that's competition. But we're working specifically on our own product.
But
and getting our own
in other
product
words,
in theaters.
would AMC say to you, "We'll give you X amount to only put it in our theaters if you don't put it in Regal"?
No. I've not heard of that happening. No, that sort of exclusivity doesn't really happen all that often. It might happen a little more on the smaller level. You might only release in Landmark theaters or something like that, which is an independent theater chain. So something, well, they're not independent, but they show more independent type movies. So something like that might happen, but as a general, no, that's not how it is.
I think, and I don't want to put words in HD Filmmaker's mouth, part of his question might be also for the indie filmmaker. Who might they contact, if they wanted to get their film?
If they wanted to be in a specific theater or something like that, yeah, they could contact the theater and say, hey, I've got a great movie. I want to show you the DVD. I want you to screen it. Tell me what you think. I really want to play in your theater. Based on any of a number of factors, the availability, how good the film is, the money associated with how they want to market it, yeah, maybe that's a possibility of that happening.
We're sitting in California, so would I get on the phone and call up the AMC at Century City, or would I call some national office of AMC? You
would have to call the national office of AMC. The people at the theater are dealing with the specific things going on at the theater at that time.
Like how much popcorn is there?
Well, to some degree, that's obviously what they're doing. But what they're really trying to do is make sure that the movies that are being shown are shown in the best way possible, and that people know that the movies are being shown there. So, no, you'd have to talk with a corporate office on something like that.
Now, here's a question I've been dying to ask you for the last few days.
Okay.
Pick your brain, your expertise on it. There was an article in the Hollywood Reporter.
Right.
And I think the title of it was Hollywood Rethinks the Use of A-List Actors.
Right.
And it was a long article about the economy and movies with themes that are doing well without stars. And it mentioned some movies with stars that were not doing so well.
Right.
And in the old days, yeah, you have to have an A-list star to carry, blah, blah, blah. And part of the article was touting Twilight as an example, as a glowing example of that strategy. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's no question nowadays that, especially in this economy, that you want to make the best movie for the price that's right, and get people to go see it. And if you can do that with a cast that's not necessarily known, that's the greatest thing in the world. Twilight really didn't have all that big of cast. I mean, there are certainly known actors in it that have done stuff. But yeah, I think if someone on the level of a studio said, hey, we can make this movie and we can make this movie successfully with unknown actors, why wouldn't you do it? But I would also counter that with saying that there are still actors out there that absolutely bring in box office. There's no way around that, and that you have to work with A-list actors. That's not going to go away. That's still an incredibly important factor in certain types of films. Twilight was an example that didn't need it as much, but we have a great actor like Michael Sheen in New Moon that is a terrific actor. He's done a number of great films. I would call him an A-list actor. So it's the mixture of both of that. Dakota Fanning's in it. I mean, she's an A-lister.
Sure.
So.
Well, and I think to some degree it gets back to the genre question.
Sure.
That certain genres lend itself more to not being as Well,
Paranormal Activity, great example.
Right.
I mean,
horror.
Horror films. From what I've always tended to see, don't necessarily need big actors. What they need is a storyline that hooks the audience, brings them in, and if they get scared, that's all they really need. They don't need, Nicolas Cage or someone to get killed. They just want to. It's the story that brings them in, and they. the death count.
Sure, that's right,
Right.
exactly.
So
you've been doing this for a while.
Right.
What changes are you seeing in this economic environment in terms of spending, in terms of rethinking? Is Summit saying, you know, let's rethink, let's stick with genre movies where we don't need those names? Or
You know, I think we actually have not stuck with anything specifically. That's one of the things I loved about Miramax, and I certainly love about Summit, is we haven't specifically gone into one genre. We obviously have Twilight, which is a certain kind of film, fantasy, and then you had Knowing, which was science fiction, Sex Drive, which was a comedy, Sorority Row, which is a horror film, and then you had The Hurt Locker, which was basically an independent film that did very well for us and might be nominated for an Oscar. So I think we're not necessarily putting ourselves down in any sort of specific type of studio. We're going to make the best kind of movies that we hope that people want to see and that make some money.
So is it fair then to say that the working philosophy at Summit is go with the best material,
right,
and then devise a strategy based on what that is?
Right, exactly. And you know, it's using the money to the most effective manner. And that's what all companies are doing. I think there was a time when if we throw enough money out there, the movie's going to make money. I think that's being reassessed now. Let's put the best product that we can out there that we know is going to make money without having to just throw something out there and hope that it sticks. You know, there is still a theory. The most money, if you put tons and tons and tons of money, there's a good chance it's going to make it back. But that's not always the case either.
And it's a huge risk nowadays.
It is.
And I think you're right. We'll get more into that in a moment. I want to get to another instant message from Crazy Face. Welcome to the program. Thank you for sending in your question or comment. Have you ever worked on a movie and found out a similar movie was going to come out ahead of yours? For example, Deep Impact and Armageddon came out around the same time. Two asteroid movies that came out about the same time.
Right.
Has that ever happened to you?
Crazy Face, thanks Crazy Face. That was a great question. Actually, you know, the one that we were wondering about was 2012 and Knowing were both end of the world films, and we were a little concerned that they were going to be coming out at the same time, but that ended up being one that we came out at the beginning of the year. They came out towards the end of the year a couple weeks ago, and they have both been incredibly successful films. So I don't think I've ever had a specific time where there were actual films that were right exactly the same type of marketing. But you can see that, you know, we would probably use the same type of things that they did in terms of marketing tools, and they use the same type of things that we do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time in the industry. If a marketing campaign works, everybody goes and looks at it and see how it worked and how can we use that to create a campaign for something possibly similar.
Have you ever been thrown a curveball though, like a release date moved up that you thought would be later, a script change, or your boss saying we're going to market it this way instead of that, where you had to really adapt on the fly?
Well, absolutely, and that's what the industry is all about, is adapting and making changes. So yeah, what you have to do is be able to be calm, cool, and collected, and just say, hey, we're going to figure this out, and you know, the release date is now moved up 2 months. Well, what do we do to effectively make that work? And you can do any sorts of things. We'll put more trailers out there. We'll make a final poster that really pops and people get really excited about. You know, we'll do concession stuff. Or we'll take the actors to different cities and cities that we know that they're going to be excited about, and we'll bring them there and get excited. We'll do a lot of preview screenings and get people to know about it. There's all sorts of ways to quickly market a film if that ends up what it has to be. So, yeah.
Good deal.
Just part of what it is.
Just part of what it is.
Right.
Another IM coming in from Miss Worm. How far in advance do you start to market a film, and why do commercials seemingly disappear as soon as a movie opens?
Great question, actually. Well, the thing with marketing is it all depends on when the materials are available. If, you know, if the posters are ready, I'm putting the posters up in theaters. The trailer has to be made and finished and cut and set to go in theaters before I can do anything. So I've worked on films that are a year in advance, and I've worked on films that I've only had 4 months to work on. It's all dependent on when the things are finished. When the elements are there, I begin working. Now, I create a market strategy well before they're available. when we know when the movie is going to come out, we create a release date. You figure all of that out, and that's where you start it. But you really can't do anything until you know that they put the elements together. If I don't have anything, I mean, I could do shadow puppets, I suppose, but that's about all I can really do. So once they're there, I'm working on full steam, and every movie, and people always ask me this, well, do you work harder on New Moon than you did on Sorority Row? Absolutely not. I keep the same amount of pressure and hard working on everything. Every movie is as important as the other.
Well, and it also sounds like you work with what you're given. You're probably not given the same budget for every movie. You're probably not given the same resources for every movie. So given the resources and the budget, whatever, in that context, you work as hard for every movie. Right,
and that's the thing. The Hurt Locker had a very different budget than New Moon has. But with the budget that we had for Hurt Locker, I think we created a very exciting, terrific campaign that really, people use this word all the time, that popped.
Right.
So.
Well, let's get specific then. You can pick the Hurt Locker, you can pick Twilight. What is your process? A lot of times we'll have actors on here, directors. I'll ask them, how do you break down a script and when do you do what when in terms of when you get so forth. So what's your process? You show up for work, you find out you're going to be working on this film called Twilight.
Right. Well, I walked into Twilight. Twilight was already starting to happen when I walked in there.
Well, pick one that you came on right from the beginning.
Yeah, I'll talk about. I'd like to talk about the Hurt Locker because the Hurt Lockers is a film that is very much like what I worked on at Miramax, but also is a great film that I worked on at Summit. It's in the top 10 films I've ever worked on. So that's just kind of an exciting thing.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot of great films.
Yeah, I've worked on over 100, and to put it in the top 10. The thing with Hurt Locker is, it was early. We knew pretty early on what we were going to do with the movie. And what it was getting out to specific theaters, and this is in terms of what I do, getting out to the specific theaters and making sure that they know about the movies. Because what you have to do on a smaller film, unlike Twilight or New Moon or something like that, which is going to be in 3,000 theaters, we were going to be only in New York and LA, and then Chicago, and then San Francisco, and then Boston. So as it expands, you need to make sure that your trailers are there and that they're on appropriate films that people know about. So what you do is you create a strategy. So what we would do is we worked in New York and LA and found the movies that we knew were going to be the ones of where the audience that we thought was going to see we thought that was going to see the Hurt Locker, and put them on those screens.
So for example, people out there, you go to the movies, you see coming attractions for other movies that are going to come out. You know all those movies that are currently going to be in theaters ahead of your movie, The Hurt Locker.
And I negotiate to get those on. Right. And on big films, you do that on a national level. On a movie like Hurt Locker, at least at the beginning, you start to work in New York and LA. And the theaters you're talking about are like the ArcLights, the Landmark, Century City. Those kind of theaters are the ones that, there are many theaters. The Grove obviously will play a movie like The Hurt Locker. One thing I did that was recommended by the writer of the movie, Mark Bowl, had said to me, well, get the uniform that they used in the film. I said, that's great. So we got the uniform, we brought it down, put it in a prime spot at the ArcLight, and anyone that didn't know about the Hurt Locker, now suddenly there was a bomb diffusing uniform in the theater. People were like, what is this? And we had a whole description of what these were and what they were used for. So that was a great way to get people specifically interested in a specific theater that we knew was going to be playing the film. So it's things like that. We had a terrific one sheet for the movie that really showed.
And you're putting together the one sheet, the artwork that explains that, or is that
that's through marketing. That is a specific marketing department of which we have absolutely unbelievable people that do some terrific stuff. And it sold it as two different films, and I think that's how we had to sell the film. It's an action movie, but it's a thinking action man's movie, and I think that's what works. And I think it appeals to, one thing we wanted to make sure was that it appealed to men and women, because action films tend to appeal only to men, but there's a real heart to Hurt Locker that I think makes people want to say, hey, I think I would go see that. It's a woman director, and that was one of the things that was so great to work on the Hurt Locker. I don't want to go on too long, but is that Catherine Bigelow, who is absolutely extraordinary. She's an amazing director. She's made all these great films. I think this is one of her best, but I worked on the film. Of course it was one of the best, right?
Absolutely.
But she had such a passion for the movie. She was in these meetings with us, telling us what her thoughts and feelings were on the movie. We were sharing our thoughts and feelings, and they all kind of meshed together in what I think was a terrific campaign, and now is is looking hopefully to be nominated for Best Picture.
Wonderful.
Can't ask more than that, right?
Good luck with that.
So.
When are you doing all that? Are you doing that in terms of getting into the theaters, working on the trailers, all the marketing materials? Are you doing that when it's in the script stage? Are you doing that when it's in post-production?
Well, it all depends on what kind of film it is. Hurt Locker was acquired, so we bought the film finished. So once we had the film, decisions had to be made on how we were going to market it. So that's a little bit different. Obviously, trailers really can't begin. They can begin at the script stage, actually, and they do. People look at the script and pick out moments. And sometimes sequences in big budget films are filmed specifically so that they can be used in teaser trailers. But, the marketing, once you know the film is locked and the script is there and you're going to start getting into production, the marketing machine is beginning. It always begins that way. So whether I'm a part of it or not it's always going forward. You're always looking to find out ways to best effectively get the movie out there in the marketplace.
So. Like the local trades in the California area, when a script is from the point in which it's in development to a rumor, there's press releases.
People are already,
being aware.
8 and Cool News, all these web pages do the same type of thing. They get the movies out there early, which is good. If there's any sort of awareness on the movie ahead of time, that's what you want.
Are you connected to the websites for movies?
In terms of
building the website, a part of the marketing?
Oh, no, we actually have a specific guy that does all of our viral campaigns.
Gotcha.
He is phenomenal. And that's not his sole job, but he does all of that kind of stuff in working with MySpace and Facebook and all those kind of good things.
Absolutely. So. HD filmmaker, second question of the night, HD, thanks for tuning in. What is an example of an agreement between the distributor and exhibitor?
That's a great question. The agreements are not always set ahead of time, and what agreements can be set on the box office of the film, how well it did. Sometimes they're set in advance if it's a big budget film, and there's an expectation of how much it's going to make and things like that. And the deal, certain things can happen and can't happen, but you try to lock in the movie to play as long as possible at the theater. That's what you want. If the movie is making money at the theater, you want it to continue to play there. So you want to negotiate as long as possible to keep it up on screen.
Are those contracts contingent, though? So, for example, some movies go into a theater and they're there for 6 weeks. Some go and they're gone the next week.
Right.
So what determines that?
Well, literally, it is the box office. If it bombs, we might want to play it in a theater where maybe it'll do a little better business, so we'll move the print, or they have something coming in. It's all negotiated that next Monday. Movie comes out on Friday, Monday the box office rolls in, and it's all based obviously on a wide scale, with the circuits, but it's also, based on a single theater scale. Well, this theater did this box office, it should stay there. A great example of what's working right now in the marketplace of a smaller film is Precious. They did $100,000 per theater average, which is unheard of. That movie is not going anywhere. Right. That's going to stay in the theaters as long as possible. As long as people are going to continue to see it, Precious is going to stay in those theaters. Now, as it expands, there's another question. It might not do well in one area than another. It probably will. It seems like the movie translates very well for everybody. But when you have 100,000 per theater average, that I don't know how many they opened it, but yeah, of course they're gonna be staying in the theater. So it's all dependent on how specifically it's doing in that theater is how long it's going to stay in there. And we negotiate to try to you want to keep your movie on screen as long as possible because you want people to see it.
Is it better from a psychological point of view, though, to be on less screens and have a very high per-screen average in terms of what you're taking in, as opposed to being in more screens, having a low screen dollar amount per average?
It all depends on the movie. On a movie like Hurt Locker, that's a campaign where you start small and end up bigger, right? So it's something like Precious. That is all about the per theater average. The movie is make or break for per theater average. Now, different per theater averages. One movie might say 30,000 per theater is great. Another movie, 15,000 could be great. Obviously, 100,000 is great too.
Right.
So it's a wide variety, and you try to hopefully set the expectations early for the film. So you don't want people, oh, that was a disaster. Well, you don't want any of that out there. So, this was in line with what we were expecting. So the better the per theater average on a smaller movie is what you want. On a wide release, you still want a great per theater average, but the more prints you have, the less of a chance you're going to have that big number.
Now, later on tonight, we are doing a FilmNut doubleheader at 10 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to have Lloyd Kaufman from president of Troma Entertainment, come on. And one of the things he's talked about in the past is how year after year it gets harder and harder for the independent filmmaker to get his work out there in theaters.
Right.
You know, if you want to draw a parallel, you know, 10 years ago, look at what the Starbucks and the fast food chains are doing to the mom and pop coffee shops,
right,
and you know, restaurants.
The big studios are hurting the little independents.
The big studios. Can a little independent get their film in a movie theater, or how much harder is it today than it was 10 years ago?
Well, it's obviously much harder right now. You see all the headlines and the trades now of all these independent companies that aren't staying afloat. You have Warner Independent that's not around anymore. Paramount Vantage isn't around. Miramax is on some hard times right now. So the marketplace for independent films, to some degree, is shrinking, and that is, to me, that is incredibly depressing. I firmly believe that there should always be a marketplace for independent films. There should always be the availability for people to see them, because independent films are just as important as the big blockbusters. Is it more difficult now? Absolutely. There are a ridiculous amount of movies vying all for the same spot. And that's what makes it hard nowadays. And, you know, when you have...
So the number of exhibitors hasn't necessarily grown, but the amount of people trying to get films to be exhibited has grown.
The screens are growing. There's no question. The idea, you know, 20, 30 years ago, there weren't megaplexes.
Right.
Now there are these megaplexes. You know, the Empire, AMC Empire in New York is a 30-plex. They have 30 screens. There are a number of those now. And those have to happen so you can get all of these movies that are in the marketplace. Something that's going to happen next year because of the economy is you're going to find that there aren't as many movies in the marketplace simply because studios have cut back. So it'll be interesting to see how independent films fit into all of that. If there's less movies in the marketplace, there's more of an opportunity for smaller films to be seen. But there are still, like, the Laemmle theaters out here that show the more independent type films and the landmarks. I think they're always going to stick around. It's going to be more and more competitive because they want to make money, and they want the films that go to their theaters to make money. But I don't see independent films going away. Is it going to be tougher? Yeah. What does that mean that you have to do? Well, you have to make a product that people really want to see. In the end, that's what you have to be able to do.
And you have to take advantage of the viral opportunities and maybe target the DVD market and so forth. But
and there is a huge DVD market. I mean, that is still a real possibility.
You are a popular guy, and the IMs are lining up over here, so I want to get to some more of them. First, a comment. Ralph Lorenzo wants to know if you're related to Matt Damon.
I am not related to Matt Damon. Thank you for saying that. I was hoping someone would make that comment. I am not related to Matt Damon. I was born one city next to where Matt Damon was born, but no, I'm not related.
See, lucky you, I get like Stanley Tucci, you get Matt Damon.
Well, you know, at least it's a good-looking person.
At least it's a good-looking person.
It's nice.
There you go.
When
nice
you so yeah.
Let's see, Solargist or Geist, if ever I'm getting that right. I'm surprised there's not a Twilight video game yet. Your thoughts on that?
You know, I actually have no idea why there isn't a Twilight video game. There's a Twilight of almost everything else out there, which we've done a terrific job, I think, of keeping the integrity of what Twilight is, but also, you know, making money from it. Why there isn't a video game, I honestly don't know. I think there's always an opportunity for something like that to happen.
What is the extent of what you're involved in versus not involved in? So, for example, would you be involved in video games? Would you be involved in fast food crossovers with pictures on the mug?
You know, the fast food stuff I have a little bit to do with, but again, a lot of what I do is specifically in the theaters, and but in that sense, I do work on the cups and things like that are deal with popcorn cups and soda cups and popcorn, things like that. So we did one for New Moon, and it was one of the most successful cups actually of all time, which is pretty good. When people are saying your name with things like Harry Potter or something like that,
yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
You can't be more happy than hearing your franchise named with some of the biggest franchises ever.
Absolutely. So. Now, back referencing my industry trade articles, I think I read one in talking about the Economic Times a few months back where the philosophy of trailers has greatly changed amongst the studios and so forth. How maybe in the old days, years ago, when money was more flush, spending money, throwing everything at the wall, studios would farm out to multiple places to cut trailers. They would have 10 or 15 different trailers, and then they would weed it down, and then they'd pick this, that, and the other. And now they're just going to one place. Is that true, or is that your experience as well?
No, I still believe that, you know, sometimes you will use different companies to create a trailer. One company might have one way of looking at it. Another company might have another way. Trailers have evolved a tremendous amount since they started. And this is just a random thing of why they're called trailers. They're called trailers because they used to trail the film. They're at the very end of the film. Trailers were an afterthought for a long time. Trailers have completely changed in what I do and what's done at the very early stage. You want to make the most effective trailer that tells the best part of the story. And that's always how it's been. I'm a firm believer in short trailers. I like short trailers, but short trailers don't always effectively get the story out there. So there's obviously a need for that. But in terms of the making of the trailer, I still think there are multiple companies that are used. Now, we might use the same company for types of genres. I don't know who we use for Twilight, but you might use the same company for that type of film, and then work with the company that's good at doing comedies, so Sex Drive or something like that was used for them. So it's all.
So you view trailers as a unique skill set.
Absolutely.
That warrants a whole separate. Yeah,
absolutely. Cutting a trailer is, I think, incredibly difficult. It's telling the whole story. It's editing the movie in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's not easy. So yeah, I think there's a whole different level of creative skills to bring a trailer out there.
And in your mind, again, a good trailer succinctly tells a story, leaves the viewer wanting, obviously.
My biggest gripe is giving away everything in the trailer.
Thank you, because I hate that. I hate that about comedy trailers. It's like when a comedy trailer. That's right. That's all the jokes. That's right. Exactly.
Well, but nobody wants to give away everything.
Right.
But trailers can make a film, and people are like, I gotta go see that movie, and then it's not good. Or a trailer can be, oh, that was really not that great a trailer, and then they go see it in the theater. I didn't see that, or I did.
Right.
So it's taking the moments that we think that really work and connect with an audience while not giving away everything.
So I think a part of a question that we got away from as we got into one particular area of it was, why do commercials for movies seem to stop or incredibly slow down like the day it comes out? I think there's a pretty obvious answer. But
well, it's a money thing. I mean, the theory is get the butts in the seats the opening weekend. And part of how, the last film that was able to effectively keep their movie on screen for an extended period of time was obviously Titanic. There hasn't been a movie like that. There have been movies that have stayed on screen along. Batman, The Dark Knight's a good example, stayed on for a while. But
My Big Fat Greek Wedding was an independent that grew,
that stayed forever. Yeah. But as a general, that time has passed. So the movie has to open on its opening weekend, and if it doesn't, then you're scrambling to figure out, well, why didn't we make money? And sometimes what you do is you change your commercials. Well, we need to appeal to this audience because they didn't go and see it. We need to appeal to that audience. But that's why the money is all up front. It's getting those butts in the seats the opening weekend.
My answer would be because word of mouth, positive or negative, is going to take care of business for you one way or the other. Good positive word of mouth means you don't need the commercials. Bad word of mouth means commercials can't overcome that.
Right. Well, and what's amazing and what you can find is bad word of mouth can break a movie by Friday night. Your box office can already have gone down. Oh, that was not a good movie. It doesn't always happen, but occasionally, if it's really awful, you could see the decrease. Obviously, Saturday to Sunday tends to drop a lot, but because people just don't go to movies as much on Sundays for whatever reason. But it is sort of interesting if you see that the reviews are awful. That's why bad movies that they know aren't going to get good reviews don't get screened till like the Thursday before the opening, because they don't want
I'm very skeptical of movies that refuse to have reviews.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we got off on a good topic because I see a couple of more trailer questions on the IM board. Tumor 20, welcome to the program. Thanks for sending in your question. I hate when trailers have scenes not in the actual movie. Why does that happen so often?
Well, that's a great question. It's any of a number of things. Trailers get made a lot of times before the final product is finished. So there could be something that for time constraints, or in the end it just didn't fit into the movie, on the wider scale, there are any of a number of reasons why it isn't. I totally understand that kind of sucks.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Why wasn't that in the movie? That's a decision made by a lot of people that are well above my pay grade. But
I could just picture poor Timber 20 sitting in the movie theater about an hour and 40 minutes in. Wait, there's no way that scene's going to be put in here now.
Right, exactly. So it stinks, but that's just, it happens all the time. It pops in a trailer, doesn't work necessarily on the wider scale of the movie.
And a lot of times, as you were talking about, they might start to make the trailer before the movie's finished yet.
Sure.
So at the time in which they put that trailer together, maybe they thought it would be cuts later.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a number of answers
There's
to
any
it.
of a number of reasons why it might not be, but yeah, trailers are done a lot of times well in advance, and that's why certain scenes are, as I mentioned before, certain scenes are shot specifically because they know they're going to be the ones that are going to be in the trailer. So.
Jutton77 would like to ask, I heard many stories of a director preferring an unused trailer who picks the used trailer and why.
I'm not quite sure what that...
I'm feeling better now because I'm not sure I understood that one as well.
Okay.
Let me read it again. I've heard many stories, thank you for the question, Jutton. I've heard many stories of a director preferring an unused trailer, okay, preference for an unused trailer, who picks the used trailer and why.
I think they're asking. It's Brian in the
There's a
booth
voice.
here, guys.
There's a voice. Where's that voice coming from?
The voice of God.
I think Justin's asking. Hey, Justin, he's a longtime viewer, and I'm Brian. If you didn't see me in the pre-show, I think they're asking if there's several trailers. I've heard on DVD commentaries that, man, I really like this trailer A that we made, but the marketing company went with trailer B. So clearly the director doesn't always have the last say in there.
So who picks the used trailer and why? Right, there you go.
Okay, well, that's a good
Thank you,
way.
voice from beyond.
What happens is that you test your trailer. You test your trailer with an audience. A lot of times you test multiple trailers, and based on what the audience thinks is helps. You do this with everything. You do this with movies, and you show those to audiences ahead of time and get people's opinions. So any sort of marketing thing, you want to use the one that's best for the audience, that the audience is going to be appealed to. Obviously, I wouldn't say that we don't want to, make the director happy. We obviously do, but it's what best works for the film.
Right, and again, we were just talking about trailers is a unique skill set.
Right.
That's not necessarily the same as directing, and a director might be looking for one thing.
Well, and the thing is, we make tons of trailers that don't get on screen. If people don't know what red band trailers are ones that really can't be seen by the general audience. When they say red band, I'm sure people know this, but the band is what's shown at the beginning of the film that says this trailer is allowed for all audiences, and it's literally green. Well, the red one is one that's not suitable for almost any audiences, and it's got swearing in it and things like that. Those tend to go on the websites, our official websites, where you have to put in your age and all that kind of stuff. So we do it's not like we don't always. If the trailer doesn't appear on screen, that doesn't mean that we haven't used it.
Right.
A lot of times we'll use it for something like that.
I like how you see on the website where you have to put in your age and that stuff, like everyone's lying about their age on that.
Nobody should be lying. They're all putting their real ages, I'm sure.
Exactly. Everyone's over 13.
Right, exactly.
So for independent filmmakers out there, I know you're working now in a lot of bigger budgeted things. Do you have any advice for the indie filmmaker out there in terms of where their mind should be at in terms of marketing? What should they be thinking about in the pre-production phase to put themselves in a good position to market and have their film exhibited?
Well, a lot of it will be depending on where they want to go. Do you want your film in theaters? Do you want it to go direct to DVD? And I think I would guess that every filmmaker wants to have their film on the big screen. They want to sit with an audience and have that shared experience of seeing how people hopefully love your movie. But having that set ahead of time, saying that this is my goal, this is where I want to be, and finding the best ways to make that happen. If it's talking to theaters and saying, hey, I want you to screen my movie. If it's a lot of people start viral campaigns and get people in, hey, I have 20,000 people going to my website watching a trailer I just put together for it. I think people really want to go see this movie. If you're going to sell your movie, you have to be able to tell the people that you're selling it to, people are interested in this. People want to see this movie. And the way to do that is, I think viral is a great way of doing that. People absolutely want to be a part of my movie. They want to go see it. And it's using any of those sort of techniques. And viral campaigns don't have to be expensive. You know, if you make something good that people want to see, they'll go to it, and you could do that in an inexpensive way, I think. So
wonderful.
I hope that answered it.
Okay, so fair enough. Yeah, and now publicity, similar to what you do, different on a campaign. You describe. Do you work with the publicist, conjunction, separately? What do they handle that you don't?
Well, publicists, a lot of times they work with the actors, obviously. I, as a general, do not work with the actors. They work with the newspapers. They work with all the advertising of the film, getting the interviews and all that kind of stuff. They work the premieres, those sort of big events, and they're the ones who are getting the actors out there, getting people to know about the actors. They do a lot of things that I don't know about, but that their side is working with the talent and making sure that people know that the talent are in the movie, and getting it out there. You know, there are any sorts of ways of marketing that I am not a part of, which is there are outdoor campaigns when you see on bus shelters, when people are there, you see them on sides of buildings, or you see billboards. Digital billboards are the big thing now, or sides of buses. So these are all different parts of marketing that help get the film out there. But as far as the publicist goes, they're specifically working with the talent and getting interviews and getting them on shows and all of those kind of good things. The press,
and you're all about negotiating with the theater and getting stuff in the theater, and getting stuff in the movie for trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm getting it now. Website guy would like to ask, are some scenes actually filmed in advance before principal photography specifically for the use in the trailer? I think you mentioned that they were,
Yeah, that's
right?
absolutely been done. I believe it was Godzilla shot something before the film had even started, which was the big foot going into the museum of, I hope I'm getting the right film, it's not Jurassic Park. But
I think one of the Spider-Mans may have, I'm not sure, but I think one of them
Spider-Man is one of the great stories, and it's, I should say great, one of the sad stories about Spider-Man was their first teaser trailer was all about the Twin Towers. And the trailer came out in the summer, and they had to yank that trailer right away, and that was all made specifically for ahead of time and all of that kind of good stuff. They did a poster with the Twin Towers in his eyes, and they did a trailer with the Twin Towers where he caught a helicopter. After 9/11, that all had to be shot. They didn't want to be the company that was known that had the Twin Towers in them. Obviously, that was a nightmare, I'm sure, for them to have to fix all of it. Spider-Man wasn't going to have a problem at the box office, but again, you don't want to be the studio associated with a disaster.
Right, especially, you know, so close to the time of the disaster.
Yeah,
you know?
it was literally, the trailer had come out, I don't know the actual date, but it came out like in August or something like that, and then it was September 11th. It wasn't all that far away. So, I mean, that's an idea of wow, we didn't see this coming. Now what do we do?
How do we adjust and adapt?
Right.
Mike May would like to ask, have you ever been given a film to work on where you said to yourself, this movie is so bad, I have no idea how to market this? Thank you for the question, Mike.
That's a great question, Mike. Of course, I'm not going to mention any films that I've worked on. That, you know, of course, you see films and that, you know, I've worked on a number of horror films before. What I always try to say to myself, and this is, I think, incredibly important from a marketing aspect, just because this isn't my kind of movie doesn't mean that it isn't somebody else's kind of movie. And that's what's important. And then you say, you know what, I'm not doing this because I like it, I'm doing it because I know there are people that do like it. So yeah, are there movies that I have worked on, I'm like, oh God, I would never put that on my resume, of course. But, you know, all studios make clunkers, and all studios make amazing films. So you save your time to work on the Chicagos and the Aviators, and you know, and I love Twilight. Having had an opportunity to work on something that has made such an impact with people is that's what you hope for.
Well, I know all the fans of the Stream.tv are huge fans.
Twilight fans. I have, well, what I would say to the people that don't like Twilight is that, you know, it's not for everybody, but there isn't anything for everybody. And there is this sort of thing, you know, well, I hate it because it's so big and it's so...
Some people,
you know, or why does he sparkle, and all those kind of things. Well, those kind of things are the things that the fans are looking for. So you're trying to make a film that appeals to the people who have read the books and love the books, while also appealing to a wider audience. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. I get that people don't like it. You know, you can't appeal to everybody all the time, right? I mean,
no, that is a great philosophy. You are 1,000% correct. If you look at the most popular music, CDs, record sales,
Right.
TV shows, whatever, they're still not liked and or not known or watched by far more people in this world than
Right.
the people that do.
Right.
So you don't make and market for the people that don't like, you make and
Right.
market
We make it for the people that want to
do,
go see it.
that want to see it.
Right,
And-
exactly.
And you reminded me of a great conversation I had with a friend of mine when I was younger about film critics, because certain kind of movies are destined to get panned by the
Sure.
critics. And my friend's point at the time was a movie should be evaluated based on what it is against other movies like what it is, and based on the audience that like that kind of movies,
Right.
not the critic's personal taste.
Right.
You know,
And-
and you
and-
made that distinction, right, between
Well,
movies
and
that you like.
That's what I have to try to do, because there's no way I'm going to love every movie that I work on. I don't love all movies. I try to like. I actually like.
And you're a
movies
film
that-
school graduate,
I
right?
am, but I like all genres. I like horror. I like science fiction. I like everything. I like romantic films. I like good movies. However, there are movies that, again, it's that idea. There are always going to be movies that don't appeal to me. But that doesn't mean they're good or they're bad. There's always going to be almost always going to be somebody that loves a movie outside of the people that made it.
Right.
So, good for them. I want to make sure that the people that love that are going to go and see it.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great philosophy.
Yeah.
I applaud you for that.
Well, thanks.
Sunrise Sunset would like to ask, you mentioned that you worked on over 100 films. Were you on the set for any of them, Twilight for example, or are you strictly in charge of the business, she wrote business, I kind of did a thing there,
Right, I got that.
portion of things?
Well, that's a great question. I don't get to go on set. That's not where my job is. There are incredibly talented people that go on set and that do that. I'd get in the way. There's no reason for me to be on there. I would love to be in front of the camera. Why not? But no, I'm not part of any of that. The people I would be taking away from the people that need to be there at the time. But no, my job is in the office and working on the things that make hopefully the film work. So,
well, I
on a
think
marketing standpoint.
what I'm taking from this interview is you might have a future as Matt Damon's double
Or evil brother or something like that. That would be great.
Yeah.
So if Matt Damon is watching, I would love to be in one of your movies.
So I guess maybe a kind of a follow-up on what we were just talking about in terms of bad movies, money, that kind of thing.
Right.
What does better at the box office? A bad movie with a great marketing campaign, or a great movie with a bad marketing campaign? And what would you rather deal with?
Well, obviously, from a marketing standpoint, I want to have the best marketing campaign possible. Obviously, you want that. Specifically, as a person who loves movie, I want a great movie.
Right.
I want a great movie. But understanding that not all, you can work incredibly, incredibly hard and hopefully create a great marketing campaign and people still not see your movie. It's happened on a number of movies I've worked on. It's awful. And the idea is the movie is always your baby. You know, you spend all this time, and then if it doesn't work, you go, what could have we done? But yeah, I always want to. I would rather have a great marketing campaign for a bad movie. But as a film person, you always want the better film.
We were talking about this a little bit before we came on. Like
Right.
you were saying how everything can be right. You can have a great movie, you can have a great marketing campaign, and the movie still doesn't perform up
Right.
to expectations.
Right.
What are the variables that you can think of that cause that or contribute to that?
You know, there can be any of a number of things. It can be when the film came out, for whatever reason, people weren't into the film at that specific time, or there was something else out at the time that was taking your audience away from it. Sometimes there are no answers. Maybe the audience that you think is yours didn't show up to the movie because they were seeing something else, or they weren't going to the movies that weekend. It's any of a number of answers. The real thing that I'd say is that that Monday morning when you have the final numbers that come in and you see that it didn't work, there are those moments where you shake your head and I say, I have no idea why that happened. And that's sad. It really is sad, because to some degree every movie is your baby.
Well, it's tough because there's only, I would imagine, so many variables you can control for. You can't know
Right.
every film that you're going to come out against. You can't know every economic condition. You can't know, what teams are going to make the
Right.
Super Bowl or the playoffs or whatever.
One weekend it can be raining in all the major cities, and you're thinking, this is the great thing in the world. Everyone's going to the movie theaters. They have a reason where it's sunny and beautiful, and it's in the middle of the summer, and everybody's going out and not going to the movies. So, I mean, those are variables you obviously
Right.
can't control. The winter, if there's a huge blizzard on the East Coast, well, your box office ain't going to be all that good in New York and Boston, because nobody can get out of their houses to go see the movie.
Right.
So.
Solargeist would like to ask, what is your favorite movie? Don't say New Moon.
Okay. Well,
Or perhaps aside from New Moon,
aside,
if that was your favorite.
Okay. No, my favorite movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
And
I'm thinking you didn't do the marketing campaign for that one.
I did not do the marketing campaign for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love Raiders because I think Raiders is the greatest adventure film. The greatest action film is Die Hard, but I think the greatest adventure film is Raiders of the Lost Ark. The movie never slows down. It's always moving. It's always exciting. I think it's got a great story. Spielberg's direction is amazing.
Harrison Ford.
It's Harrison. I love Harrison.
The comedy that he manages to always work in.
Everything is delivery. It's a perfect movie.
Yes.
In my opinion, it's a perfect movie.
I want to roll through a few more of these before we wind down here. Yum Candy, do you ever get involved in the creative side of filmmaking by telling filmmakers, hey, XYZ is hot right now, write about this, and I can really market that? Guys, vampires are kicking butt. Write a vampire movie in your business.
I think to some degree we sort of started the whole vampire craze.
True Blood? You and True Blood?
Well, I love True Blood. Mm-hmm. I think vampires are hot now. I don't know how long everything's going to stay with vampires. I think because we have a finite number of books that we're going to make. I think all of our
But do you get involved with filmmakers and
no.
say no?
No. Obviously our execs do. Mm-hmm. So I don't specifically. But yeah, this is hot right now. Maybe we should put this in. There's a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead. There's a great moment in Sorority Row where one of the characters says they're talking with a girl and she says. Look me up on Facebook. I'll totally confirm you. And I think it's an absolutely terrific line. And references are always used in movies when things are hot at the time. Right. That's always done, and that's always interchangeable during the process of making a movie. How any more of that happens, that's done on a different level. I'm not really a part of that in terms of marketing.
Right. Now, this might be outside of your purview. If so, just let me know.
Sure.
But you alluded to it then. So would people in different departments then work with writers or let agents know, hey, this is what we want, this is what we're...
Yeah, I mean, marketing strategies are constantly evolving. And if there's something that's happening at that specific time, of course we want to be a part of it. If people are getting excited about something that we think that we can work into a campaign or something like that, why wouldn't we do it?
Sure. Well, just a couple more questions for you. One is from Website Guy. Any advice for those with small web series or networks, hint, hint, with zero budget for marketing?
Well, if you have zero budget, I don't know how much. But I think if you can create a website and you can get people to know about your website, the one thing, tell people about it. I mean, go to venues where there are going to be a lot of people and hand out flyers. Hey, I got a web show. Come and see it. I think that kind of stuff. If you live in LA, why do that? Go around to main areas where you know people are going to be that hopefully have similar taste to what your thing is, and hey, this is free. Go see it, or it's only $2 or whatever it is. And those kind of things can really work. Create a Facebook page. That I don't know the costs involved in that.
That's free, yeah.
So if that's free, make a Facebook page. I mean,
you really do have a separate department for that.
Right. If I'm not knowing that it's free to do it on Facebook, then if that was my department, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But yeah, utilizing all the things associated with creating something viral. Obviously, your medium is viral, so you're appealing to the same media where people are going and seeing it. So utilize as much of it as you can. Again, I don't work with it, so that's advice based on off the top of my head.
Based on a guy who doesn't know that you can get a free Facebook page.
Exactly. So I'm not dumb, by the way. I just didn't know that.
Oh, that is funny. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you see me with or without a beard handing out flyers at your local mall, don't be surprised now. I've got my advice.
There you go.
Let's see. Two more last quick questions. The first one is, I got to ask you, because I said something in the introduction. I mentioned something about you being part of the bedroom crew. What does that mean, and what is your affiliation, connection to the Stream.tv?
Oh,
so well, people watching know?
One of my good friends was Brian's roommate. So, and I went to college with her, so I've known her for
we can say her name.
Marina Catela. She was on.
Past guest of Filmnut,
yes, she was
editor
on the
of The
show.
Biggest Loser.
Yes, a terrifically wonderful lady, and I was good friends with her, and that's how I met Brian, and that's how I got to know that he was shooting his show there. So we'd be watching Smallville or something in another room, and he'd be shooting his show.
Fair enough.
So
They
there
were
we go.
like, hey, listen, all these shows every night, they're really getting in the way of our primetime television watching. You got to go get a studio or something. And then
Go watch Smallville.
That's when we got Studio 2.0, and now we're in 3.0.
It was actually very distracting because when I showed up to audition, I was like hearing Smallville in the other room, and I was like,
So we
I want to be
probably
watching
met and
that.
I don't even remember.
That's right.
Yeah,
Well, this is it.
unbelievable.
You've been a pleasure. We'd like to get all of our guests out here on this question, and that is, what is your favorite set speak term? You said you don't go to the set a lot,
Right.
but you're a film guy. You graduated from film school, so you're familiar with things like back to one and checking the gate and going 10-1 and martini shot and all those kinds of things. Do you have a favorite set term or set speak term?
I hadn't even really thought of this. Mine's really basic, I guess, and this probably isn't all that interesting, but I love the idea of action because that's what's going on. There's always action involved in the movie. And the idea of someone saying something that is going to put all of this stuff, when the director says that, everything associated with the movie is now starting to get into production. Everything's happening at that point. I think that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Pleasure seeing you again outside of that one experience. And best of luck with all of your movies coming out.
Well, thank you very much.
Present and future.
Yes, and thank you for all the great questions.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a pleasure having you on,
Yeah,
seriously.
great. This was great.
That is going to do it for this edition of FilmNut, but if you are in here live, stick around because we'll be back for more in just a little bit. Thanks for tuning in, guys.